It's not always easy bringing people from diverse cultural backgrounds together, particularly to celebrate a common British identity insofar as there is one. But an ex-senior police officer who came to the UK as a child set up an organisation to try and do just that. Kash Singh set up One Britain, One Nation to bring together different communities to take pride in Britain, celebrate British shared values. But an initiative he set up to encourage school pupils to sing a patriotic song this Friday on One Britain, One Nation Day has been backed by the government, but has come under criticism from those who don't think kids should be asked to sing patriotic songs.
Some people on social media comparing the song to North Korean propaganda, even the work of the Hitler Youth. We'll listen to this to see if you find, or how offensive you find this.
We are Britain and we have a dream to unite all people in one great team. Strong Britain, great nation. Strong Britain, great nation. Strong Britain, great nation. Strong Britain, great nation.
Well, it makes me chortle. I have to say, talking through with the production team the story this morning, there was definitely a divergence between those people who had kids and had been through the sort of enduring primary school sing-alongs, and who I certainly felt that was actually a fairly good rendition by the standards of some primary school sing-alongs.
Yeah.
Is it offensive?
I mean, you have to be quite sad to think that's offensive. I really do think so. You know, it's a harmless song. It's about Britain. It's getting kids, you know, singing together. We're actually going to be speaking to Kash Singh, the founder of the organisation who started this initiative to get kids singing later. But this idea that the outrage that people have shown towards this is
I'm not sure it's wholly
incredible.
outrage. Some of it's just pure old-fashioned derision, and that's fine. If people find something naff, then that's absolutely fine. I mean, a couple of points of clarification, it seems, on this are worthwhile indulging in. This is it seems to be a grassroots initiative. Sometimes it's hard to tell there's a phrase from American culture or politics, which is it's sometimes astroturf, in other words, fake grassroots. This feels like the real deal. Kash Singh, who we're going to be talking to very shortly, came over to the UK, same age as you.
Yeah, 6 years old.
6 years old.
Couldn't speak English.
Parents were a labourer. I think his dad was a labourer. He comes over. He then he ends up working for West Yorkshire Police in Bradford, in Manningham. You don't know Bradford so well, I do. And Manningham's an area that's had very substantial policing problems over the years, and he made a difference there. And here is somebody who's reached a certain age in life, a certain position in life, who felt that he had a message to communicate to the rest of Britain. And if you look at the website, the One Britain, One Nation website, I mean, it's fairly anodyne stuff, and I would say fairly unobjectionable. It is about, this is what the website says, things like this. It's about seeking to create a single culture that embraces and accommodates differences without overemphasising and reinforcing them. There's a separate question here as to what extent the government then gets involved in this.
Well, I think the problem is it's because the government has got involved that this has
backed it.
Yeah, and it is a grassroots organisation. As you say, Kash Singh came here as a child. He spent 20 years working in the police service in West Yorkshire. He's retired. He's developed this, great career as a police officer serving his community, and all he wanted to do upon retirement, set up an organisation which, gives back and encourages. Because he says he's proud to be British and he loves this country. He thinks this country is great, and he's not trying to impose his own sense of what Britishness is. He's talking about a common shared identity that everybody can embrace.
And there is, as we know, as we've been discussing for the past week and more, there is clearly a raging debate in this country about to what extent it is possible to coalesce around symbols and songs, anthems, and the whole panoply of what builds social cohesion in a nation which has different communities within it. We can turn to Kash Singh now, who joins us, I think, from Bradford. Kash, where are you today?
I'm at home. I'm in Keighley, West Yorkshire.
Straight to it. Tell us why you felt the need to set up One Britain, One Nation. What was your inspiration?
Well, Colin, I came to this country at the age of 6. And, my parents were foundry workers. They came here to a land of opportunity. And I went through the normal state education. And at the age of 20, I joined the West Yorkshire Police. I had a fantastic career. I worked with some of the finest men and women you could work with, some great leaders, and throughout my sort of police career, I just felt, because I'd seen all the government-led inquiries into cohesion, into race riots and things like that. And I always felt, having policed diverse communities, that there were fantastic people in all communities. And what we needed to do in this country was to bring out the best in all our communities. Because I felt, how could we show a cohesive society if we don't have an opportunity to bring out our communities? Because, your Diamond Jubilees, your World Cup football, your Olympics, they're not every year. But we needed to bring our people out to celebrate this wonderful country that we have, that's, welcome people from all parts of the world. And I wanted to put something back into a country that's given me so much. So I came up with this concept of One Britain, One Nation, simply because I wanted to eliminate hate and, discrimination in this country, because no one person, regardless of who they are, what their background is, deserves to be the victim of any form of hate crime. So that was the rationale behind all this.
And do you feel, my story is similar to yours in that my family came here when I was young, and I've adopted Britain as my home, and I do think there is lots of opportunity, and it's a great country. I feel very wedded to that idea that the British values are great values, and we are a welcoming country. But do you feel that idea that Britain is welcoming and we should celebrate it and we should embrace a common identity, people are increasingly pushing back on that idea, and we've almost become ashamed to say that we're proud of being Britain, and we're afraid to talk about a common identity and shared values. People kind of scoff at that when you say you're a patriot or you're patriotic.
Well, absolutely. And when we don't celebrate this country, what we're doing is we're doing a big injustice to all the people of this country, and in particular those people who've come from other parts of the world to this country, because it's only because of the infrastructure of this country, the opportunities in this country, that we are today where we are. My father was a foundry worker. I ended up as a police inspector, very high-profile police inspector. Our next generation of QCs. So, we've got a lot to celebrate. And in answer to your question, if we don't celebrate our country, then we're doing a big injustice, not just to ourselves, but to the future generation. Because you've got kids now growing up in this country from all parts of the world. And what we need to do is, we need them to feel part of this great country, so that every child has this strong shared sense of belonging, that this is their country, and that they can achieve anything that they so desire. And it's about instilling hope and confidence in these children, so that they're going to become a great asset to this country. And that's exactly what we're doing. But the work that we've been doing with teachers is absolutely inspiring. And I'm so proud of myself and the teachers, the people in the education world, in terms of how they're embracing this concept, in terms of bringing out the best in every child. And, a great deal of gratitude goes out to them.
Yeah. And Kash, you managed to persuade, I suppose, that the teachers, was it at St. John's School in Byerley, where they recorded this song, which is provoking a bit of a reaction online? Was it the one in Byerley?
Colin and Mercy, I've spent 30 years in the police, and the reaction on Twitter, it's unjustified. I can't comprehend how we've received that type of a reaction from the work that we do. Bringing out the best in children, celebrating our country, championing those values that every parent, carer, a guardian wants for their children, because none of us, the one thing I have in common with all these people who are responding negatively on Twitter is, we want the best for our children, all of us. And I feel, if you look at the images, the smiles on the face and everything, it's absolutely fantastic. And going back to your question, it was 7, 8, 9-year-old, 10-year-old kids who wrote that song. It was our children who wrote that song. And they wrote that song because they wanted to bring unity. They want to celebrate pride. They want every child to feel part of this country. And I don't know how, and I still haven't comprehended it, how it's had a negative reaction. This is the children of our country writing those words, wanting to celebrate our country and bring each other together. And they want to do that because they want to eliminate hate. And it's not, hate is not acceptable.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I mean, it's one thing to see reaction on social media. I mean, we've got some emails in, tweets in, Denise saying, when did we change into North Korea? Matt, I thought this was a parody. It seems like this is propaganda. I mean, I was even looking at one news website. I won't mention who it was. It's easily found. And they put the word in connection with this story, patriotic, in inverted commas. Why? It's not in inverted commas, it's a patriotic song and a patriotic campaign. Point, paragraph ends.
The question here for me is this. How have we developed that type of a mindset comparing, what we're doing with North Korea? I mean, celebrating our country, celebrating our people, wanting to eliminate hate and any form of discrimination. How can you compare that with North Korea? 7, 8, 9-year-old kids want a better future for all the children in this country, and they come up with this wonderful song. It's incredible. It's remarkable. I honestly cannot understand how those people have come to that conclusion. We live in the best country in the world, and let's pull it together. Let me throw this at you. You look at people like Marcus Rashford, Ian Wright, Sterling, John Barnes. These people got to the very top of their profession. They became legends in our country, representing England at the highest level possible. And what happens? They get abuse, racist abuse. So look, we've all got to do something to eliminate this. And the conclusion that I've come with is, and this is a conversation that I've had with John Barnes, the footballer, what we've got to do now is win the hearts and minds of our next generation and let them know what inclusivity means, what togetherness means. Let them become understanding of each other, respectful of each other, and champion those values of kindness and things like that. That's the way we're going to save it. And I think it's in the interest of all of us to do that. And DFE have not played any part in this at all because this concept is growing so big. And they always say if you can do something in Bradford, you can do it anywhere in the country. and in 2019 with 60,000 kids participating, what we want to do is we want to take this nationally now. It's too big. All the head teachers, the CEO of academies are saying, Cash, this needs to go national. And this is why I appeal to the good nature of Philip Davis, Hester McVeigh, Naz Shah, and to help us to take this across the country so that we can create a Britain that every child, every parent, every guardian, every carer can be proud of. And I think it's imperative that we achieve that in the interest of our nation and, most importantly, our future generation, our children.
This is really all fascinating, and I'm so pleased you've joined us today. But I could speak to you about this for a long time, but I wanted to ask quickly, as an ethnic minority, I think he's gone.
That's a shame. That's a shame because actually, if we do establish a connection.
There he is.
Cash,
No,
I think we've got the sound, we haven't got the pictures.
Yeah.
But a couple of questions that I'd be keen to put to Cash, particularly around the fact that nobody's saying you can't criticise a kid's song, of course. Lots of people look at that and think, oh, it's awful, naff, kitsch, all the rest of it, embarrassing. Fine, I mean, that's all entirely in the eye of the critical beholder. It's another thing entirely to say somehow it's patriotic in quotes, and there's something wrong about that, about expressing a desire for people to come together around national symbols.
I was interested in, I was going to ask him, as an ethnic minority watching all the conversations that have been going on about race, because I think it's interesting. He said, yes, there's all this racism and I acknowledge it, but Britain is also the best country in the world, and sometimes I feel like you're not allowed to have those two thoughts at the same time, because as soon as you say Britain's the best country in the world, some people think, oh, well, you must be denying that racism exists. How can you not acknowledge that there's racism in Britain? But actually you can hold two thoughts in your head at the
simultaneously
same time.
Just a couple of other final thoughts, closing thoughts on this, and let us know what you think. I mean, it's one thing to go for the song that the kids came up with. Maybe you find it naff, maybe you find it uplifting. It's entirely in the ear of the critical beholder, isn't it? But is there a danger that sometimes we bring in new stuff that supplants stuff that's perfectly serviceable? Some might say, what's wrong with the national anthem? Lots of countries will sing the national anthem at school at some point in the year, sometimes within the context of a week. What's wrong even with sort of, quote, tainted songs like Rule Britannia? I mean, I'm just, I'm throwing that out there. And then there is the question of where Kash is coming from. I mean, really specifically and geographically on this, Mercy. Manningham, where he policed, is an area of Bradford, and don't forget, Bradford by population is now, I think, the 6th biggest city in the country. It's got an important role, really important role to play in our national story as it unfolds. And Manningham's had tremendous problems around social cohesion in recent years, race riots within living memory. I remember, the story of the Labour Club in Manningham that was set on fire, and the doors were barred with people inside back in the early 2000s. It's been a real tinderbox at times, and that's the community that Kash Singh has gone in and police. So he speaks whereof he knows, and his fears are entirely legitimate in some respects, I think. And also, Bradford has a key role to play in terms of communities learning to coexist. Ray Hunniford, the infamous stroke famous Bradford headmaster, was based in Manningham. He warned about the failings of multiculturalism. This was the city in which the Satanic Verses were set on fire in the late 1980s. So it's